indicate that it's on?
Huh?
Doesn't this green indicate that the mic's
Yeah,
on?
but you can move it.
Oh, gotcha.
It's not on. The light's not on. That's it, there we go.
It's on. I was waiting for it to go off my.
It's on?
It's on.
Okay.
We're ready.
The City of Washington Park and Recreation Commission meeting held January 12th. Call the meeting to order. Can we have roll call, please?
Dan Cassett. Present. Bob Zurich.
Present.
Bob Kleppel.
Present.
Kevin Creedy.
Here.
Jeff Packey.
Here.
Dwayne Reed. Tessie Steffens.
Here?
Sparky Stuckenschneider. Debbie Todebush.
Here.
Dave Waymeyer.
Here.
Betty Werner.
Here.
Gavin Woolley.
Here.
Darren Lamb.
Can pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
I'm sure you've all had a chance to read the minutes from the December 8th meeting. I need an approval and a second.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Gavin, a second by Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The director's report, please.
I'll keep this rather short since we have some stuff to discuss. I'll focus on projects. Ronzik Field is ongoing. Still waiting for a schedule. I mean, I've talked to her a couple times. We're still, May 1st is, as far as I know, still on target. But I am trying to get a little more detailed schedule. And on that project, so we have the field going on, but then there's some side projects going on too with bullpen fencing and bullpen and different things like that. So you'll see when that project's completed, you'll be able to tell a noticeable difference on just the aesthetics of how everything looks. We're doing some new fencing, new bullpens, in addition to the actual turf too. So Pavilions at the lake, first section of concrete should be poured at what would be pavilion number 3 across from the amphitheater tomorrow. So part of that section will be poured tomorrow. Pavilions are on track to be here sometime in February. They're finished being manufactured or fabricated. Now they're off to the paint shop, and then they said painting, I don't know, I guess by the time they get there and then get painted, that'll be about 3 weeks, and then maybe a week to ship them here from Arizona. So probably about February before we actually see them. Phoenix Playground, that is still on track to show up the last week in January. And so we do have some site grading to do over there before it gets here, or before we start. And then the Cole Miller House roof is out to bid right now, and bids are due tomorrow. And so that'll be a contracted out project. And once that's complete, then the Historical Society has some work to do on the inside where we had some leaks, some drywall to fix and things like that. Yes,
What
sir.
kind of roof is going on it?
Red metal roof. So it'll look similar to what's on there now.
A standing seam type? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
And then the Waterworks building renovation project has started. There's some cones and stuff down there now so they can access the building. We picked out window colors and things like that recently, so you'll start seeing some activity down there. Any questions about anything I went over, or any other questions for the director?
Okay, moving on. Communications from the audience? No? Okay, old business?
None. I didn't have any listed.
All right, and new business? The Bush Creek Greenway
I
presentation.
put them on first so they can get out of here. Appreciate Sal and John coming to fill you guys in on, because I think you guys had some questions recently when the articles ran in the paper, what's going on, because it's been a little while since probably we visited that.
So while Sal's pulling up the map, I'll just kind of give you a kind of a historical overview. I asked John yesterday, I guess, or the day before, to go ahead and pull up. I knew we had some applications and some studies that the cities had for numerous years, and here's one of the early photos of the Bush Creek Greenway that was being proposed in our bicycle and facilities plan back in the late 90s. So 1997, this is 25 years in the making is what I was trying to make sure. So I just want to make sure that nobody had some idea that, you know, somebody on the third floor had a bright idea one day and said, let's just put a trail down in the Bush Creek. This has been going on for a long time. So John has got, this is the map that kind of originated, it kind of originated at the same time really as the Riverfront Trail.
Right.
So it was both put together within this plan so that the city could make application and receive the funding that we have successfully done. John can tell you a little bit more detail, but I know there's been delays from 2017 is when we applied for it. We put the application with COVID. Unfortunately, well, there's good and bad. The good part is you get federal grant funding to go ahead and help you build that. I can't remember what the final numbers were on percentage.
637.
Well, I know. Do you want to know what the percentage was?
It was like
How much
70,
local?
30.
Huh? 70,
Yeah, we
30?
applied 80-20, but then once we took out the trailhead,
Okay.
it was like 70-30.
So it's like 70% feds, 30% local match. But the bad part about it is that we had to go ahead and wait for their blessing to go ahead and get the bids out, review the plans, et cetera. And so I think we had, how long, a year delay? About a year before we were able to go ahead. We've just received word within the last 2 weeks that the project can go out for bid. So we met recently, though. I understand you guys had some concerns maybe at your last meeting, or questions, I guess I should say, just about maintenance or what's going to be built, et cetera, and so we met with Wayne and Chad to make sure that everybody understood this was the application, this is what was going to be going out for bid. So I'm going to let Sal or John go ahead and take over from there, but my part was just to let you know that this has been in the works for a long, long time, so.
So we have, this is the kind of final overview, full extent map of what is going to go down on the ground and on the pavement. We had tweaked this a little bit in 2017. At that time, Darren Dunkel did participate with us on the public forums we had and letting the neighbors know and all that. But this was really the overview that we submitted to the state and then finalized to be able to get the funding for this. Just to keep in mind that this grant is considered a transportation alternative program. It is not a recreational grant, and so we had to get as much points as possible, we had to show that we were connecting parks parks and schools and places of employment to show that this is, as well as recreation, also a transportation alternative for people. And so this full extent map, I think, is the best overview we can show here. And so obviously in pink is the Riverfront Trail, and then this multicolor line is the phase one, basically extent of the Bush Creek Greenway. So what you see in green highlighted is the final phase and location of the Greenway. And so it starts at Jefferson and 8th here. There's going to be a trailhead where the old trailer, the Frykes plant was, and we'll follow the south side of the creek here to Sunnyside. It'll have a new sidewalk to the high school. Actually, if you were to go any point throughout the year and see and just look at that area, you can see dead grass from where the high schoolers leave and walk down that and then cut through to get to the sidewalk to basically access downtown. So we thought that was a natural location for that. It continues, it crosses the bridge at Sunnyside and actually goes to the north side of the creek then. So this, anything in green is still off street. This is a greenway, a completely 10-foot concrete path off of the street. Goes on the north side of the creek here, and then there actually is some right-of-way located at MacArthur there, and the road was never completed, but the right-of-way was there, so we had the room to work. This off-street goes all the way to Highway 47 and actually stays on the 47 right-of-way to 8th Street. And so right in front of Heritage Bank in that strip mall there, that's where the trail will access Highway 47. As part of that 47 redevelopment, when they put in new sidewalks in, there's new pedestrian ADA access. And that's where we enter our kind of mid-phase. Everything in blue here is going to be on-street bike path. And we're going to utilize sharrows, so it won't be anything concrete. It won't be a separate path. It'll be street signage and then the painted share the road signs on the ground. This is on 8th Street. It cuts down here at Camp Street and then continues on 9th Street, again with sharrows. So there's a little over a mile here that will be on street. And then once you get to South Point here, off 9th Street, it goes back off street into a greenway, and this is where it backs and hugs the levee and the actual Bush Creek and goes behind Old South Point School, and then again back on street to connect to the eastern trailhead. So we have a full loop here, and once you get to Jefferson, obviously with the existing facilities we have with sidewalks and pedestrian-friendly facilities downtown, you naturally kind of have a large loop here that connects our trailway system. So when Darren showed that, or we showed the 1997 grant, long term, as these properties develop, the idea would be have a actual off-street trailway through here, actually following the creek where you see in this blue. But obviously we didn't own or control that property. It would be extremely costly to go and acquire that. And so with this first application, we decided let's go for properties that the city owns from the 1993 flood buyout and anything that the school district owns. And so we're able to use that on existing property. And again, it'll be a 10-foot concrete path anywhere that it's off street, and then just sharrows that'll be painted and maintained by the streets department, anything that's in blue on street. Yes.
In the South Point area, you mentioned, just mentioned in cooperation with the school district. Is it going to have to be worked out in conjunction with their future plans for the South Point facility?
Yeah, so they are aware of it. It does kind of hug the areas closest to the creek and the floodplain as possible. And so even though this was approved when the school was active, we've stayed in contact with them and updated them on this just in 2 meetings ago with the school board. And so, yeah, it stays closer to the creek and will stay in a future construction.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening, John Nelges, Public Works Director. It's important to note that this is a Transportation Alternative Programs, TAP grant, which is essentially a transportation grant. That comes from your essentially federal gas tax. So your gas tax goes to Washington, D.C., through the state, comes back that way. So it's really no different than how we pave major street corridors, such as High Street or those things. It's kind of the same thing. Back 6-7 years ago, there was another funding source called Safe Routes to School, SRTS, Safe Routes to School. So when we kind of came up with this concept of this phase one, and it's of this Bush Creek Greenway, the green has always been the plan, and like Sal said, this is the corridor. That would be essentially phase two. But we went after from a transportation perspective because we know it's a shared use anyway. And with that connection to the high school, that's what got this thing going. We're pretty confident because you just get a lot more use out of it, and that federal money is really good on those dual use things. So just to give you some idea of where the money actually came from.
Good deal.
And actually, I believe the city's portion of that 30% is actually getting paid for the transportation sales tax. So just give you some idea on that.
Oh, okay, okay.
So it's kind of a park system gets the benefit, piggybacking on that transportation component.
How long does it take to pay back in the grant? Like if we have 30%, did they give us a timeline to get it paid off or?
No, we pay, how it works is when the contractor does the work, he'll submit pay applications, and then we're required to pay those, and then we have to request reimbursement back from the state and the feds, which you can imagine that's fun. And then they reimburse us that money back. So for example, if the contractor wants $100, we have to pay the $100 to the contractor, and then we have to request the $70 from the state, which then goes to the feds, which then goes back to the state, which then comes to us. So it's a process.
Hey, John, just so this group's clear, some of the So this would not be, the way this was planned out and some of the requirements, from what I understand, it wasn't like when we did repave the Riverfront Trail.
Totally different.
You know, there was no bench pads included, no benches included, no, no really recreational stuff included in it. It's just pure concrete, really, and I guess maybe some little signage.
Yeah, I mean, think of it more,
Signage.
you hit it right on. I mean, it's a sidewalk is really the primary thing. So doesn't mean you can't enhance it. Doesn't mean that we haven't talked about
Right.
some potential enhancements, but that's what it is. So if, you know, if you were thinking that it was gonna be bench pads and those amenities, that's not in that dollar number, which we've known that,
Yeah.
so.
Any other questions? Okay,
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
thank you, thank you.
I don't think we mentioned, but we're expecting to go out to bid and within 4 weeks, and then once we accept the contractor, we can begin construction, so.
Okay,
Okay.
very good. Okay, Washington Day Camp overview, which is attached to our minutes.
Oh, yeah. So I don't know, since I've been here, we haven't really talked, we've talked about programs, but not specifically this one. And so I had Robin draft up kind of, especially since we had camp last year, but we had a reduced enrollment due to COVID, and the year before that, it was canceled altogether. So I'm hoping this year we can get back into the swing of things with a full camp, which is approximately the last few years, minus COVID year and minus last year, where we took half the amount of our kind of usual enrollment. Usual enrollment's around 100 kids or so. I think back maybe 10 years ago, it used to be about 130. And so she kind of laid out how the camp is ran. And then you see we had 57 campers last year in 21. And then kind of staffing. And generally, we raise the fees each year about 3%, try to keep up with the minimum wage increases. And then on the back of that page are kind of like the last 4 or 5 years of camp. Now, you notice, if you look at like the staffing expenses in 2018, and then you go to 2019 and then 21, they go up quite a bit once you hit 19, and that's because of the jumps in minimum wage. And so last year we lost a little bit of money, but like we said, we went into it knowing we were going to take half the amount of kids that we normally do. And then if you look at 19 and 18, we made a little bit of money. And we do get a donation each year that we have camp. We didn't get it in 2020 due to COVID, but we do get a donation from United Way every year, so that does help things.
So if I've got this right, if all goes well, we can increase the number of kids this year.
That's what I'm hoping.
And when would we know that?
I don't know, like last year, or I guess the year last year when we cut enrollment to half, we just stayed in touch with Mark Scornia, the emergency management coordinator, and watched trends and things like that, and kind of surveyed some other area departments that do camp, and then the Y to see, kind of see what the Y was thinking and things like that. So kind of check around and kind of watch what's going on. Any other questions about day camp? All right.
Project updates?
I kind of did that in reverse a
Yeah,
while
that's
ago.
right.
So I did the projects a while ago, but I'll go through some other stuff I had down here. Kind of related to projects, so too, and general maintenance in some of the parks. We're reducing landscaping beds. I think I mentioned this last meeting, and we've actually done some of them out at the lake. A couple of reasons. One, to cut down on maintenance that we generally don't do a good job of keeping up with. And then two, it opens up, a lot of the beds are on the west side of the lake, and it opens up that area of the lake where you can actually see the water. Kids can kind of get around some of the trees. We're trimming up some of the limbs on the trees too. People can get around the trees, the actual fish, and not have to step in the water. things like that. In the long run, it'll help us with maintenance. I sent out a couple weeks ago, I think it was, a picture of 3 new park signs that were installed.
They look good.
We are currently bidding out equipment and plants for the spring, and then I'm working with John Nilgis on a paving plan for Lakeview Park, so to pave the trail up there. This paving plan won't include everything, but it'll include the majority of the trail up there. We're hauling fill and stuff up the hill from the shop to behind like Soccer Field 3, and that section there is kind of torn up right now, and we're still hauling, so I didn't want to pave that and tear up the new pavement. So, but like the hill running up from the All Abilities restroom past Angel of Hope over to the Y, all the way to the football parking lot, that'll all be paved. Kind of starting there at Soccer Field 3, going towards baseball number 3, that'll all be paved, and then over to Lewis Street. I budgeted approximately $60,000 for that, and John's working. He came up with a plan that's about $60,000, so that's what I'm hoping. So we'll have to work, and we're shooting for the spring for this. John's working to get it out to bid soon, so we'll have to work with the user groups up there, baseball and softball, and let them know what's going on, and obviously soccer too, because we found on the website. Robin found out today that soccer's released their schedule, and looks like their practices start March 1st and games start March 4th. So, and paving would begin sometime after that, while they're starting, while they're in season, I guess. So, staffing, still 2 full-time people short. We did have a part-time office clerk start downstairs that's helping us out with special projects and phones and vacations and sick time and all that stuff, so that's good. Well, that's building maintenance, yeah, building maintenance. So. And that's it for kind of updates in the park system.
Anybody have any questions?
Wayne, you've worked on the trail culvert?
Oh, yes, it's fixed. We got some assistance from the street department,
Right.
so. Yes, I think did you bring that up? Was it last meeting?
We
or
talked about it last
before?
month.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it's off the list.
It wasn't a priority a month ago, but we found time and
Well,
did it.
yes, with some
Good,
help,
good.
so.
Okay, so just to be clear on something, when we go into executive session, I only know how we did it on the council. You adjourn the meeting, and then you reopen it, is that correct?
That is not.
Okay,
So what you need to do is
Oh,
for somebody to go ahead and make a motion and a second to go into executive, and then Wayne will do a roll call vote, and then you'll go into executive session. When you get done discussing the item, then you go ahead
and adjourn the
make a
meeting.
motion and a second to go back into regular.
Oh, okay.
And then you can adjourn.
Then we
And
then
then adjourn.
Okay. So with that said, I need a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. I have a motion by Bob and a second by Deb. All in favor? Aye. Okay, we will now go into executive
And we have to
session.
do roll, right?
Oh, yeah, and,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, yeah.
I'll do roll. Okay, roll call.
I think she